welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride this week is Dean Chambers. And wait a minute. Guess who's back? We got Secret Squirrel Mitch Grawl back in the house. We got him out
Guess
the
who's
skiff.
back again.
Uh-huh.
Shady's back. Here I am.
Yep.
Here I am, people.
Yeah.
Turn up your radios.
Secret Agent Man is back.
Glad to be back. Glad to be back.
All those classic top secret documents back in the skiff.
Yeah, you know. Well, I've been sequestered for the Trump trial, but they decided to finally kick me out, so I'm back this week.
Oh, okay. So Vivek Ramaswamy replaced you, and sitting in the gallery. Okay.
Yeah. Well, after Stormy's testimony, they finally told me that I could leave. So.
Yeah, because they had there's a joke there. They said, yeah, we ran.
After hearing about our former president being
we used the
newspaper, they said
after Stormy gave her her testimony, they happened to put a black light where Mitch was at, and it's like, yeah, you got to go.
Yeah, you gotta leave. You gotta leave. Sorry, son. We can't have you around here.
Guys,
you're out here.
Hey, guys, I was not gonna do that, but that was low hanging fruit.
Hey, no camping in the no camping over in the jury.
Exactly. So I know you guys are going to be laughing. Trust me, I'm talking to all the other coaches. There was a lot more I could say because, again, I'm a military vet. So there was a whole bunch of jokes that just popped into my head, but I got to keep this family oriented.
Right. That's right. You never know who's going to be listening.
That's right. Little Timmy will be asking questions.
Plus too, we don't want Shuggy to get blushed.
So. Blushed or blunted.
Yeah, what's up there? I don't know.
Okay.
But it's good to be back. Good to be back with y'all. It's been half a season. I think I was here for week 1 and 2. Then I had to deal with some stuff off the field, so I had to redirect some time. So glad to be back, y'all, this week.
All right. Well, during your absence, I think we did a pretty good way. I mean, we got a lot of coaches through. I know one coach, he doesn't do social, so I'm respecting his wishes. But it was nice to go ahead and run through and get all, different coaches. So when I say all the coaches, I can say since we've been doing the show, except for the ones that actually, politely declined, we've had every coach on the show. So that was something that I wanted to try to do to get everyone more involved, and I'm glad that we were able to get that done. So hats off to all you coaches that came in and did the show, and you guys now know a little bit behind the scenes of what we do in the pregame and then going through the show. So I think it was kind of fun, and I think we're going to go through and do it all again to keep you guys involved. So going into week 9 on the review of the games of week 9, there are some teams that are definitely in the doghouse. There's 2 teams that's vying for the Sacco Bowl. I'm quite sure one of them is not going to be there. We'll go into that. There was some major upsets, probably a minor upset, I guess you want to call that, but we're going to go through all of those as well. Middle segment, we're going to talk about the injury bug getting around, going around the league. And then, as you know, we'll wrap up the third segment by going through the upcoming games and lead pipe blocks. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First game on the list, we have Las Vegas hosting the New York Jets. And as we say around here, the Jets do what they always do, taking this one 24-10. We're going to start this week off with Mitch.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Las Vegas has run into some some big-time issues since that 3-0 start. I was looking, and wow, lost 6 in a row. I know that early on, it looked like it was going to be about a 5-team race in the West, but Vegas has fallen off, and it didn't get easier for them this past week with the Jets. But when you look at that game, it was actually a little bit tougher than I think folks might have expected for the Jets. I know that Mac Jones didn't have his best day out there, but the big thing about this game though was, it was turnover palooza. You look at Las Vegas, 3 interceptions and a fumble lost, but then even the Jets had 2 picks, so total of 6 turnovers in this game. Unfortunately for Vegas, 4 of those were for them. So to me, that was probably the difference in the ball game.
All right, Dean.
Yeah, those turnovers definitely made the difference, and also the Jets' running game was very solid. 30 attempts for 148 yards, an average of 4.9 yards per rush, which gave them more than 30 minutes time of possession. So the Jets were pretty solid. I mean, Jones threw 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's kind of a little bit of a spotty day in the passing, although the passing was fairly efficient other than those 2 interceptions. But the running game was a difference maker. And, as Mitch pointed out, the Raiders have lost 6 games in a row now, and that after that 3-0 start. So it's pretty tough stretch of 6 games for the Raiders. And I don't know that it gets any better this coming week either, but we'll see.
All right. Next game we have L.A. hosting Jacksonville. And, close game, but ended up with a 10-point spread as L.A. took this one from Jacksonville 24-10. Dean.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough game that the Chargers won by 10 points. And the Jacksonville was a little bit better in the running game, but their passing game wasn't bad. But, once again, Herbert was pretty good for the Chargers, completing 61%, and more importantly, 3 touchdown passes. And those 3 touchdown passes were ultimately what won the game, because Jacksonville only came up with 14 points in this game, and that generally isn't going to win you very many games.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah, well, as I was talking on Friday Night Lights, I always, when I see Justin Herbert, I always wonder, why don't they call him A-Bear? Being the Falcons fan that I am, it seems like it should be A-Bear, not Herbert. But I digress. Either way, he had a big game. As Dean already hit on it, the 3 touchdowns, threw for 332. Definitely one of his best games of the season. And, just like, last year, after, Los Angeles started off, what were they, like 1-5, 1-4? I don't remember. And I remember, I think it was our Friday Night Lights game that Steve didn't realize he was off mute and was screaming and hollering, and said he was, going to just, toss in the towel and go for the number 1 pick. He's won 3 in a row. So once again, Steve is proving he is the worst at tanking of any coach in this league. So, he's right back in the thick of it at 4-5 now. So we'll be interested to see what Steve does with his tanking the rest of the way.
All right. Next game we have Pittsburgh hosting Houston. And I think you could say this game lived up to the hype on it, but the outcome was Houston just nipping them out by 4, taking this one 21-17. We're going to start with Dean and then switch to the coach. Dean.
Yeah, I think this is another game where my lead pipe lock looks more like a lead pipe curse. It was a very tough, close game. We watched this on Discord, and as I remember, Houston scored like the last score in the 4th quarter to ultimately go ahead and win this game. And both the defenses played fairly well. Not a whole lot of points were scored, but I think the difference was that Houston made more of their opportunities. And and scored 3 touchdowns with their 3 scoring opportunities, whereas suppose Pittsburgh scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and that 4 points ends up being the difference in a very tough, close game.
All right, Coach, what'd you do?
No, I tell you what, I am thankful to have gotten out of Pittsburgh with the win. I think I said, going, as we were getting ready to watch this Friday night on Friday Night Lights, I was not feeling confident in this game at all. I did not have a good week of practice. Wasn't lack of time to practice. It was I just was not feeling good about what I was getting accomplished against that Pittsburgh defense. But luckily we were able to get that final drive and get that game-winning touchdown at the end. So again, I will take this win. But Pittsburgh, defense. That's Donovan's got that Pittsburgh defense playing like the old school Pittsburgh defense. That team is tough. I get to play them again next week, so looking forward to that. But for those of you playing Pittsburgh, that record is not a fluke. They're legit.
All right. Next game up, we have Indianapolis hosting Denver, and I think Indy might be on a little slide here as the Headless Horsemen happened to pay a visit on the away game to support Denver as they took this game 20-14. Mitch.
Well, I think on the show last week, y'all are asking, Tim, for the secret of beating the Jets, and he gave a really great formula for beating the Jets. Unfortunately, that same formula apparently doesn't work against Denver because Denver was able to go into Indianapolis and pull out the victory. A tight game. I mean, there was, pretty clean. Only one turnover there, so can't really say that was a major impact as far as sloppy play. But it was just an even game, and Denver was able to get the victory. But I'm sure that Tim is holding some tryouts for kicker after going 0 for 2 and losing by 6 points. So something tells me he might be holding some open tryouts this week for place kicker. But we'll see. All
right, Dean.
Yeah, I think the 0-2 that you talk about, and the fact that Pickett also threw an interception, probably made it much tougher for Indianapolis to win. And Denver made better, capitalized on their opportunity to score better and scored the 20 points, and it was still a very low-scoring, tough game. So the home team was upset by Denver, who kind of looked like the Denver of the days of the Headless Horsemen in this game and winning.
All right. Next game, we have Mox and his New England Patriots taking on the New York Giants. And I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say about this on New England's performance and New York's lack of performance. We're going to start with you, Dean. Oh, as New England took this one 38-19.
Yeah, I think if you looked at these two teams after 5 weeks, New England was 0-5, and I believe the Giants, I think they were 3-2, but were looking pretty solid. And it looked like New England was competing for an entry into the Sacco Bowl, and it looked like the Giants were competing for a playoff spot. Things have changed quite a bit in the last few weeks. New England has won 5 games straight now, and the Giants have been doing more losing than winning. And you look at the individual stats in this game on offense, New England really just did a number on the Giants' defense. 447 yards total, 62 plays. The rushing game, the Giants should be a good team running the ball, but the Patriots did the running of the ball this time, 168 to 64 yards. And the passing stats, well, the Patriots are even much more solid in the running game. Daniel Jones threw 2 more interceptions. I think he's thrown a number of interceptions this season, and it might be time to, might be easy to think that maybe Anthony Richardson isn't ready to start, but it might be time to do that because Daniel Jones and his low discipline rating is, I think, accounting for a lot of these interceptions, and it's tough to win when your quarterback throws a number of interceptions.
Yep. Mitch.
Well, I'll tell you what, again, with my little bit of absence, I was not paying quite as close attention to some of the other divisional winning streaks. And so on Friday Night Lights this past week, some of y'all were talking about, Mox, something about the streak. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, they're like, they've won 3 in a row, and now with this win, 4 in a row. I mean, geez, I thought they were on their way to the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and daggum, now I mean they're in the hunt for a wild card. So not much else to say about this game than what Dean said. I'll just say, hey, hats off to Mox for kind of getting the ship back on the right path. So nice job.
All right. We have next up Washington hosting Atlanta, and I guess you could probably call this one a minor upset. I believe that the spread was showing Washington to take this one. I think it was maybe by a touchdown, but that was not to be, as Atlanta walked out with a 28-10 victory. Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I thought this was Atlanta's, at least from what I have watched, probably Atlanta's most complete game of this season. They were, the offense was opportunistic. There was probably some points that were left on or some yards left on the field, but this is, I think, by far their best defensive performance of this season, or darn close. And so. Big win, big divisional win, and if you can keep that defense on the field like you did against Washington, I think you've got a strong second half in store for you. That was some good football.
Dean.
Yeah, I think the story of this game is somewhat like the last game too, because my team was 1-4 after 5 weeks, and Washington was 3-2, and now Washington is 6-4. Usually, I guess you kind of expect Washington to be like 7-3 or 8-2 after, I think they're 6-3 right now, but my team is 4-5. Yeah, so the game itself, I think my defense was able to make some key defensive stops at times and held Washington to 10 points, which is pretty solid compared to some of the earlier efforts this season. And, the offense, it didn't do everything it could, but it did manage to score 28 points, just like the first Washington game this season, and that was enough to make a difference.
Okay. Next up, we have, I guess you guys could call this one definitely an upset, as we have Shuggy and his Green Bay Packers taking on Chicago, and they got out of there with a 27-24 victory. Dean.
Yeah, I made a statement on the show last week, and maybe it wasn't the most articulate thing I said and didn't say it right, but I said that Green Bay was going to do some things, and that this game was going to be a lot closer than people expected. And
hey, they did some things, Dean. They did some.
Yeah, they did some really good things. They, namely, they played some pretty solid defense against Chicago. They didn't do a whole lot of passing, but it was pretty good passing. Even though Willis threw 2 interceptions, but he did some pretty good passing and completed a touchdown pass. And the primary things that Green Bay did is they ran the ball for 194 yards. They also contained the Chicago running game that has been very solid. we think of Chicago as a passing team, but they've been running the ball more than passing it this season. But Green Bay's defense held them to 15 attempts for 33 yards. That's 2.2 yards per carry. That's some really good things that the Green Bay defense did right there. And as a result, Green Bay is never easy to win. Chuba Hubbard is the halfback for Green Bay. I think it's his second halfback, player of the game. And, of course, as usual, why is he player of the game? Well, he only scored one touchdown pass, but he played pretty well.
But, he had a touchdown pass, a touchdown reception, and a touchdown run. However, Taylor ran for 128 and a touchdown, and he didn't get player of the game.
Yeah, Hubbard had two. Yep, that's two touchdowns. Yeah, that was pretty much it. But hey,
Green Bay managed to outscore them by a field goal and win the game. And Green Bay was ahead by more than that, but they held off a late charge by Chicago to try to come back and win the game late.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah, I think Dean hit a lot of those high points. To me, though, what was the most impressive thing about this game really was the Green Bay defense. As Dean hit on it, it's tough to keep Chicago in check, both running and passing. And, other than a few, bombs that, that Chicago is able to hit, some big plays on the passing side. Heck, the 2.2 yards a carry was great, but, Chicago only completed 18 of 44 passes. So, like I said, they hit a couple of big ones, which, was able to flip the field and get to some scores. But Green Bay's defense, I thought was very impressive, particularly in the first half, where I think all four of their sacks were in the first half. So that's all I'll add, Mark.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what Green Bay does the rest of the season. They have another matchup against their divisional rivals, Minnesota, and the trash talk between Shuggy and Barney is going to be flying, and they're going to be talking about going out to the living room to get pillows to, add their
especially, last time I think, Barney got to like a 38-0 lead, and, we're a couple of onside kicks right after the tie game.
Yeah, I'll tell you though, I've already played, and it was a last second win by Green Bay. But I know it's going to be a tougher game when I play Green Bay next season. I'm going to have to bring everything I have to play well in that game.
All right, coming down to our final two games. Next one we have Philadelphia hosting San Francisco. Very close game, very tight game, pretty much evenly matched as far as time of possession. The stats as far as rushing, I think, was a little bit different on the receiving end was a little bit different. Rushing was a little bit close, but in the end, Charlie and San Francisco took this one 17-14. We're going to go ahead and start with Dean.
Yeah, the score in this game is very close, but statistically, the 49ers did better. They passed for more yards, they ran for more yards, and there was an interception and a fumble lost on each side. So you would have expected a more solid win by the 49ers than the score indicates. So I'm not sure what accounts for that. Maybe the return yards were a bit more in favor of Philadelphia. And they both were 40% conversions on third down conversions. I guess the 49ers they scored enough to win. I guess it's, the score is much closer than the stats would indicate. But it's an important win for the 49ers in their effort to make the playoffs this season, which is always tough to do in the NFC, and especially in their division, where they share division with now with Chicago and Minnesota, both teams that you would think have a very good shot of being in postseason.
All right. Mitch.
Well, if you were a connoisseur or a lover of the run-and-shoot offense, this game would not have been one you wanted to watch. There was a lot of run, but there was definitely not a whole lot of shoot, particularly from Detroit. only 11 completed passes in the game, not even 100 yards. Similar to Dean, score-wise, not that not that you would expect it to been a lot higher, but you looking at the numbers, you'd have thought that San Francisco would have probably had put at least tacked on an extra touchdown on that score. But I'm not really sure what I'm not really sure what direction these two teams are going here. It'll be interesting to see if either one can really pick it up and be viable in the second half.
All right. Final game of week number 9. And I set it up for Mitch will go ahead and start off on this one, so I can go ahead and take the lumps on this one. It was Minnesota hosting Seattle, and I would say the first half was a really tight game. The second half, Seattle kind of let it slip away. But I think overall was a pretty close battle throughout. There were a couple fumbles that Seattle lost. I think probably was the main culprit. We did have an interception, but despite those, the results ended up being Minnesota 20, Seattle 10. Mitch.
Well, I think you NFC boys are learning why I kept saying, that the Vikings were my, second favorite team. Y'all learning that the Vikings are pretty darn good coming over there and now tied for first place in the NFC West, tied for a potential number 1 seed in the playoff race over there. So, man, I think y'all are learning what I've been telling y'all now for the last several seasons. So, Vikings they're tough. They're very tough, and there's definitely no shame in losing to the Vikings unless you're Green Bay. Then that's a whole other story. But no, I am sure that all those extra old receivers are really making an impact for you, Mark, and glad you decided to sign all those guys back in the off season and everything. Leading you to a whole 150 yards in the air. But I'm sure that the last 7 games they'll really pay dividends for you. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, guys, this has all been stored up for him these past several weeks. So I figured I would go.
All I know is DK Metcalf, he should be winning the MVP right now. The way you held on to him.
I figured I'd go ahead and let him start off and let that stuff get through his system. So Dean, we're gonna pivot to you.
Yeah, DK Metcalf, 3 receptions for 23 yards. Yeah, that was worth the keep.
Yeah, I was wondering how long you were going to let that go until you came back and said, "Don't start."
Don't start. Yeah, I'm just going to let him go ahead and go. You're up, Dean.
Yeah, I agree. The Vikings are definitely the real deal, and they're looking very good this season. And this game plays some pretty solid defense. They held your running game to 100 yards. They held not 100, 106. They held your passing game to 150 yards, which is, well, we'd all like that to be better when our team passes for 150 yards. And 18 for 33, then, that's just a little more than half. So this is a pretty tough loss. And, as you said, Seattle got off to a bit of a slow start this season, and it's been kind of up and down. But, you can be optimistic and hope for, as we all can, any of us that are still below 500 at this point, hope for a better second half of the season.
Yep. Oh.
Hey, you know what? I think from the optimistic side, honestly, it can't get much worse than what Seattle's already done, right, Dean? So it's only up from here. Only up from here. Can we lock in? Maybe DK Metcalf will get at least 50 yards for you next week.
Can we
I
lock
think that
him? Can we
sounds like a
lock him back in the
budget.
skiff again and drop drop the whole thing in the water this time? Oh my God! All right, we're pivoting over to our middle segment here, and I don't have the sound clip or the audio of EMS coming by to pick the bodies up off the field. But we're going to pivot over to our injuries that we've had this season. There's been a lot of teams dealing with a whole bunch of injuries from the early on in the season, and we're not talking, in some seasons it was like, little bumps and bruises, a P1 or a P2. We're seeing some questionable ones lingering for a while, some doubtfuls, quite a few of them that were showing that they were out. And players coaches had to make changes to their roster, sign some of the players off the practice squad, move some things around, injury reserve, so on and so forth. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more. I know there was an email that came out from Richard to discuss this a little bit more, and I want to kind of expand on it a little bit, quite a bit, and help you guys get some understanding on it and clear some things up that might got you guys a little bit confused or so. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and let Mitch start off on this, and then we're going to pivot over to Dean to add his take on it. So what have you seen so far with all these injuries and how to navigate through those things, Mitch?
Yeah, well, I think that going to what you're saying about the email that Rich sent out, I think that's a big one. Honestly, I was still a little confused on that when I got back into the league, and I think if they were P1, I was sitting them out thinking, well, they're probably not going to be. And then as I kind of picked up on some things, I realized that if they're P1, there's no need to really change them out there. They're very, very, very high chance it's going to be ready to go for the week. So I definitely say take that advice for those who might have had an email and was kind of wondering what the deal was with that. So definitely, I agree with what Rich was saying. But I think the thing that's caught me, kind of being a little bit out of the loop more than typically more than I have been in recent season, is that it just seems like, and I don't have numbers on this, so this could be, who knows, maybe it's not a difference at all, but it just seems like this season there's been more multi-game injuries for players than what I'm used to seeing in the past. And I'm scrolling down the roster now out on the PNFL website, and obviously when you go out there, the first team on the list is Indianapolis, and I think everyone has noticed how Indy has just been killed by these multi-game. Even their starting running back got is Q2 this week, right? So that's a new injury. I'm sure Tim didn't have his running back starting at D3, so I'm sure this Q2 is a new injury. So more likely he'll be sitting out. And gosh, he's got 3 wide receivers that have multi-game injuries that are out there. But then not just Indianapolis. I mean, you got Jacksonville's got multiple players with multiple game injuries. And you start coming down, and there just seem to be more teams this season that have multiple players with multi-game injuries than what I'm used to. I mean, we've had seasons where I think back a few years ago when Chicago, it was like the craziest thing. I think like 3 weeks in a row they lost all their 3 starting quarterbacks. Like 7 and 8 week injuries out there. I think he ended up with like a punter having to start at quarterback in the playoffs or something. But I don't know. It just seems that there's more of it. I don't really have a point to say what the cause is or anything for folks to do differently. It would be interesting to know if some of the teams that are having a larger number of multi-game injuries or multiplayer multi-game injuries, if maybe they've adjusted their substitution percentages or something that's causing some players maybe to their endurance or their to run lower and maybe causing it. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, we haven't had any major change to our endurance ratings or anything. So I don't know. It's just something that caught my eye, and I'm curious to hear what you all kind of think is going on, or anything that's going to pop into your head when you see all these injuries going on out there.
All right, Dean, what did you notice on this?
Yeah, I noticed something a couple days ago because I was doing some updating of my files and playlists and things, and it may sound unrelated, but I'm not sure it is unrelated, because I noticed the teams so far over the first, what are we talking about, 9 weeks of the season, several of the teams have created and submitted several new defensive plays. I wonder if that signals possibly a bit more focus on some of our coaches on playing tougher defense, and in doing so, maybe that's driving up the injuries to, because we're talking primarily, I mean, there are some defensive injuries, but it sounds like we're talking primarily offensive players that have been injured. All of the wide receivers on Indianapolis, the running back, and some other plays. I had an offensive lineman that was out, I think, 5 or 6 weeks, who comes back this week. Luckily, my team has not had very many injuries. Otherwise, a P1 here and there that gets healed up. But I wonder if our teams are just putting more strong focus on playing better and tougher defense, and maybe in turn, by playing tougher defense, maybe we're causing a few more injuries than we normally might otherwise. That's just a theory. I don't know if that's true, but it's
maybe all those new defenses that Shuggy in particular has been making. Maybe he's been using the headhunter logic, for the safeties, and that's what's causing the problem.
Interesting.
Yeah,
just kidding. Who knows? Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe some of these two defensive plays. The logic is maybe more pursue aggressive, play aggressive. Who knows? I don't know, mate.
Yeah, I
don't have any evidence to say that wouldn't have maybe an impact. I have no idea.
Well, I did specifically look at some of those Green Bay defenses. He created them in the pass short category, but there's some pretty good logic in there to stop quarterback runs and some of the off tackle runs, and some of those plays I just kind of did a little testing in the play editor and looked at them, and some of those plays looked to be pretty effective. And I'm not saying that's accounting for injuries. I don't know if the Green Bay has caused them any injuries, but they certainly were employed effectively, as we covered earlier, in Green Bay stopping Chicago's running game. But I think in general, maybe we're seeing a bit more focus on our coaches and playing better defense.
Well, and I think that definitely could be. Like, I don't have anything to do with the injuries, but I think there has been some more focus on defense, because I think people are, picking up. Because I know that we've talked about it on the show, and I know back on the different chat features, the WhatsApp and on Discord, I know we've had some debates and discussion around how you start on defense, and if your opponent doesn't score, you're not going to lose. And so I think there might be some more focus on the defensive side than maybe what there has been. But it's it is interesting though how I think there are some defensive injuries, but a lot of the multi-game ones definitely seem to be the offensive players for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of us more so like coaching offense, but I think we're also finding that we have to put the effort in defense to hold down the other team's scoring to increase our odds of winning. So I think we're seeing some of that focus, and that may be contributing to injuries. I don't know. I mean, injuries to some extent are probably random otherwise, and sometimes they seem to come in patterns. Like you see all of those wide receivers injured in Indianapolis. I remember several seasons ago when one of the last seasons that Rich was still coaching a team, he had I think 3 or 4 halfbacks were injured, and you pointed out earlier the couple of seasons ago when Chicago had 3 or 4 quarterbacks with serious injuries. So sometimes position groups seem to get hit, and it's probably random. It's probably not a hidden factor or anything, but it's the pattern that we see sometimes.
Well, I mean, I think Matt, several seasons back, had a situation. I think he had like 3 of his receivers hurt. I know when I had to play him. Um, yeah, so it does seem to come in spurts. But also it does make me think though, you know, fresh weeks on the offensive side that maybe there is, and again, not knowing what everybody's substitution percentages are, but it'd be interesting to know if the teams that are seeing a higher volume of injuries, if maybe their substitution percentages are a little lower than what maybe others are doing, and depending on how many players they have on their roster that are active for the games, maybe. Honestly, I have no idea. It just, like you said, just something that kind of caught my eye this season. If we went and looked across the board, it might be the same volume of injuries that we always have. I don't know. It just seemed to kind of stick out to me. But I tell you one stat that would be really awesome that I wish the game kept, and you said I didn't think about it till you said it a few minutes ago, Dean. Wouldn't it be awesome to have a stat that showed teams that caused the most injuries?
Oh, wow.
That right there. I wouldn't even care if I won. I just want to be the team that led the league and hurting other players.
I wonder if part of it is also. I wonder if also part of it is a component of roster management. I'll give you an example. I'm not singling any team necessarily, but let's suppose for whatever reasons one is only carrying maybe like 5 wide receivers active. But no matter how low or how you set those substitution ratings, if you only have 5 active wide receivers on the roster, and you're also putting a lot of plays in your game plan that feature 4 wide receivers, at some point you're going to have wide receivers on the field who are very fatigued, no matter what your substitution ratio is. If you're playing a lot of wide receivers, you only have 5, and players that are more fatigued, I think, are more likely to get injured. So
yeah, exactly. And that's why I was kind of wondering if that might have. I was saying substitution, but to see your point though, yeah, if you're 5 active and you're running 4 wide most games, yeah, at some point one of those wide receivers is probably going to be pretty gassed.
Yeah, you're running 4 wide receiver formations in that case. If you only have 5 or 6 wide receivers, you basically only have 1 or 2 backups essentially. Or if you run the ball a lot and you're only carrying 3 halfbacks, and that means all 3 of your halfbacks are getting a lot of carries in the game, they may be more prone to injury too. Even if you set those substitution rates very high, at some point, all 3 of your halfbacks are all fatigued and someone's playing at reduced capacity.
Well, and don't forget, more than likely, one of those wide receivers is your kick and punt returner too. So they're getting snaps on those plays as well.
Right.
Didn't think about that one.
So it's probably a combination of a couple of those issues, partially roster management, partially the substitution numbers, and it's all coaching related issues that we all should. And I'm not criticizing anyone because I don't know. I haven't looked enough at rosters to see who's short at positions, and I don't know what substitution numbers people are putting in the program. So I'm not singling anyone or criticizing anyone. But for all of us, it's probably something to consider if we're experiencing a lot of injuries, maybe to look at our substitution numbers and look at our roster management decisions and see whether we're carrying enough depth at positions that if you use a lot of defensive plays that have maybe 4 cornerbacks, you probably should carry enough cornerbacks to have depth there as well.
I think you're right, because that goes to the types, the game plans you're building and the style of play. Yeah, you need to make sure your roster truly matches your style of play. Yeah, because if you're running with 5 wides and using wide receivers for your kick and punt returns, and you're running 5 wide spreads the entire game, somebody's going to be gassed. But if you're one that you run a more traditional offense, you like to run maybe 2 or 3 wides and a couple of tight ends and stuff, you probably could get away with, say, 5 active wide receivers.
Right. And endurance is an issue too. If you think it's sufficient to carry a lot of wide receivers that have like 83, 84, 85 endurance ratings, well, they're getting fatigued more than the guys with like 89, 90, or 91 endurance ratings. And that could be contributing too. And again,
No.
In the case of Indianapolis, I haven't looked at the roster. I don't know if he's throwing a lot of low endurance, maybe they're high endurance wide receivers, and he's just been unfortunate enough to get a higher than, average number of injuries at those positions. But I'm just saying that's a factor that we all should keep in mind when we're making our decisions and drafting players, trading for players, signing free agents, and making those roster management decisions as well.
No. Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, this isn't this segment is not directed towards Tim or anything. It's really, honestly, he's got a lot of crazy injuries, but it's more of, this seems across the league. I see it just seems like there's more of these multi-game, multiplayer injuries on lots of different teams, and like you said, I thought it was worth a discussion for our middle segment. Mark, you've been letting me and Dean ramble on. You got any? What's your insight? You've probably got the answer to all this.
Well, from what I saw on my end here, I know for my personal issues that I've been dealing with, I know like the first week I ended up losing a player, offensive lineman, and I think it was the second week I lost a wide receiver. So for me, I know what it was like. I think it was like out for 6 weeks. Another one was like out for 4 weeks. Like I just got one of the guys back, and I think the other one, I think he's like probable for 1 week. And then I had a couple other guys that were injured throughout the season, just little bumps and bruises and stuff. But I think that would be a good stat, a curious stat to see. Like you had mentioned, how many, what team injured the most players, but I think it would be more an interesting stat just to see how many players were hurt this season and kind of do a trend line to see what it's like from each season, to see how it goes. Is it more injuries on this season than the previous one? That would be something kind of nice if we could just go ahead and pull the data. I know there's been some guys working on trying to crack the code to the database for the league, and they can open that up or go through the game logs and then pull the information off the game logs and then sort on that. That'd be kind of interesting stat to look at and to do a trend line on. I think it could be the players that how we do our ins and outs as far as the rotation with their endurance, or could it be a play that we talk about our play logic? There could be a play that can cause that injury, a certain offensive play and a defensive play, and hey, guy gets hurt. So that's another stat that we could look at as we go through and dig deeper and deeper and deeper into this game. So something interesting to look at, though.
Yeah, and something just to be fair, since we have noticed the biggest amount of injuries is the wide receivers in Indianapolis. He's carrying 8 total receivers on the roster, and all of them are 90 endurance except for one guy that's 88. So it's probably not an endurance issue at all.
It's not an endurance issue, it looks like.
No. And the three guys that are most injured among his wide receivers are all 90 endurance. So given the general high endurance up and down all of his wide receivers, it's probably not a matter of having a short number of wide receivers with lower endurance. It's probably maybe just some bad luck that some of those guys.
You know what it is, Dean? You know what it is? It's the hidden bad hamstring rating. They've all got it on Indianapolis. That's what it is.
All right, we're going to put a pin in this one right now because I'm sure we could go on with this a little bit longer, but I'll let you guys go long because it was some very interesting thoughts out there and ideas out there for you guys. So we're going to move on over to our final segment. As you guys know, we're doing our predictions for Week 10. Everyone gets their lead pipe block as we move through. We have 3 pick'em games this week, so there's some good competition in there. The highest spread that I see is a 9.5, and the lowest that I see is the 3.5. So it looks like there could be some good games coming up this week. So we're going to run through those, some good matchups. So we're going to go ahead and run through these real quick and then wrap it up. So, first one that we have for Week 10, we have New England hosting LA, and Sporting Books is giving LA 6.5. We're going to start off with Mitch.
Yeah, this one here, man, we got two hot teams here, right? We got New England on that 4-game, heater, and we've got Los Angeles on the 3-game heater. Both teams need this game if they're, truly wanting to stay in the playoff race. I don't know if Los Angeles is wanting to, turn around and go back towards the number one pick, lottery or what. But I'm going to go with Los Angeles. I'm going to go with Los Angeles. No offense against Mox, but I think I trust Steve to keep the winning streak going a little bit more. So I'm going to take LA.
All right, Dean.
I'm going to say not so fast in that. I think New England is really having a good streak right here, and I think Mars has kind of figured some things out compared to the 0-5 start and 3 game straight win, and I think he's going to extend that winning streak another week. And I'm calling for the upset here. I think the home team is going to win a close, tough game against a very good Chargers team that's well coached by Steve. But I think the Patriots come out a few points ahead in this one.
All right.
They're definitely playing well. That very likely could happen.
Yeah, I have to agree. Both teams are playing real well. Each of them are definitely on a good winning streak. Mox is definitely coming roaring back. But you got to pick a winner on this one, and I think the spread's a little bit too wide, but I'm going to lean for LA for the victory this week. I think they're just a little bit hotter, and I think they may throw a little wrinkle in there. So, but I think Mox is going to put up a good game, but they'll just slightly be edged out by LA. So, next game we have our first pick'em game. We have Jacksonville hosting Las Vegas. Dean.
Yeah, I think this is a matchup of two teams that have been struggling a bit. And as Mitch mentioned earlier, the Raiders have a 6-game losing streak. I think they both really need this game, but I think for Las Vegas, I think they know that a loss here probably gets them to the point where they're starting to think about building toward next season, and they don't want to be thinking that way. So I think the Raiders need this win more, and I think the Raiders will be close, but I think the Raiders are going to prevail in this one.
All right, Mitch.
Yeah, there's a reason why this game is pick'em. I agree. I think you can go, really either way on this. Even when you look at point differential, they're, Las Vegas has about only like a 6-point difference from Jacksonville. I'm going to take Jacksonville, and the only reason why is that when I look here, it's being played in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville, 5 of their 6 losses have been on the road. So I'm going to maybe play the percentages here and go with the home team.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and, with it being a pick'em game, definitely both teams have been struggling a little bit, but I'm gonna shove all my chips in for this one here, and I'm going to put mine on Jacksonville this week to take the victory over Vegas. Yep, that is my lock for this week. I'm jumping in here early and getting started, going with Jacksonville. Next game up, we have Denver hosting Pittsburgh. They are giving Pittsburgh 7.5 on this one. Mitch.
Well, I'll tell you what. Like I said before, Pittsburgh's legit. out there, and so no one take Pittsburgh lightly. And I tell you what, though, when you look at the numbers, I mean, Denver is probably the best under 500 team in the league. I mean, look at their point differential, 226 to 169. I mean, that's better than anyone else in the division, including Pittsburgh. And so, it's at Denver. Denver's 2-2. I mean, 2-3 at home. Pittsburgh 3-1 on the road. Yeah, I'm gonna go Pittsburgh, but I think it's gonna be tight.
All right, Dean.
Yeah, Denver is playing very well this season, especially for a first-year coach. But Pittsburgh has really raised it to another level. And in addition to all the things that Mitch just said, I see Pittsburgh winning this. It may be fairly close. It might be tough, but I definitely see Pittsburgh winning. And I'm putting my bets on this one, and this is my lead pipe lock of the week. Steelers will win this game.
All right. I will give a concurrence on this one as well. I'll keep it short and simple. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh on this one over Denver. Next game up, we have Houston. That's on a roll, taking on Washington that just lost a game this past week. The spread is 6.5 to Houston. Dean.
Houston is favored by 6.5?
Yes.
I think this is going to be a very close game, and I think Houston will narrowly pull this game out at home, but not by that spread. So I think Washington will keep this close and just barely fall short.
All right. Mitch.
Yeah, well, the Redskins come into the house of pain after getting knocked around at home by Atlanta. You know that Jerry's going to want to rebound and prove something. It's going to be tight. I'll take the win, but it's not going to be easy. But my goodness, I don't think I ever have an easy game, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of them are easy anymore. Now that Seattle's moved to the NFC, I never get easy games anymore.
Jerry is going to be just honored to take the field with the Houston team. You know that, right?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah, but Jerry and I really do like playing each other, so I'm sure he'd be ready to play. He'll be ready to play.
All right.
He'll be ready to play, but you'll be ready to play too. So it's gonna be a good game, and with any luck, we'll be watching it Friday night on Discord.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we will.
All right. I will keep this one short and simple and just keep everything going right along with you guys. I'm going to take Houston for the victory on this one as well over Washington. Next game we have is our second pick'em game. We have Indianapolis hosting Philly. Mitch.
Well, one of the most embarrassing things I've done this year is lose to Philadelphia based on how they played in the other game. So I'm taking Indianapolis, and I'm sure I'll hear something from our friend in Philadelphia. But I'm taking Indianapolis.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I think Indianapolis is going to play a solid game this week at home, and I think maybe close, but I think the Colts win this one.
All right. Another one that we all agree on. I'll run right through it, and I will take Indy on this one as well. Next game up, we have Seattle. Question is, which one's going to show up? Is it going to be the one that wants that moral victory, or is it the one that wants a victory? They are hosting the New York Giants, and there's a 3.5 point spread towards the Giants. Dean.
Yeah, my question here is not which Seattle team is going to show up, because Seattle's a home team and they're going to show up. My question is which Giants team is going to show up. The Giants that were 3-2 early and tied with Washington for the division, or the Giants that have been playing since then? And my guess is that the arrow is going to be going upward more for Seattle than the Giants. I predict the home team wins a close one here.
All right, Mitch.
I'm from Seattle.
Well, and like you said, Mark, which Seattle team's going to show up? The Seattle team that's 2-7, or the Seattle team that's lost 3 in a row? I really can't tell the difference between the two.
There's a Seattle that's had the moral victories. Like, well, we did well, we lost, but we kept it tight and close. But the stats look good. Yeah.
But I will say, to Dean's point, though, New York has probably been a lot more helter skelter this year. They are 3-1 on the road, though, so. Maybe it's playing in front of those New York fans that give the Giants the heebie-jeebies a little bit. But you know what? Why not? I'm gonna take Seattle. Don't leave us hanging, Mark.
Yeah, I have to add something here. That Seattle team that I played almost a couple weeks ago now, I thought I had a pretty solid game plan for that. That was not a 2-7 team that I played. That was a tough game. So,
I think they were 2-5 at that point. Now they're 2-6.
Well, there's some close, tough losses. This is not a 2-7 team. So,
yeah.
Again, my question is, we're going to see what the Giants do. I mean, as Mark said earlier this season, the Giants are going to have to prove it. And at this point, I'm picking Seattle because unless the Giants prove me wrong.
All right.
Yeah, I think, come on, Seattle. Don't leave us hanging, Seattle.
Well, you know who I'm taking. I'm going Hawks. So I got to take all the other stuff that I've had, throw out, and come back. I know that the Giants have a certain way that they want to come with their setups. I mean, I still think about what they did to Philly. So I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen. So, yeah, they are a little helter-skelter, but we gotta turn this ship around again. Coming out last one out the gate. So, go Hawks. Coming down to our final 3 games, we have a very close, tight game. It's going to be kind of interesting what you guys have to say on this one. We have the New York Jets taking on Chicago. They are giving the Jets 4.5. Mitch.
Yeah, well, I've either won or been, highly competitive in all my games except for against the Jets, and they pulled me up by my underwear, gave me a wedgie, and then spanked me. So I'm gonna go with the Jets in this game. They're home, and Chicago, even though they're still playing at a high level, has been just a little off this year more than normal. So I'm gonna take New York.
All right.
I think that's the worst. I think that's the worst mental image since last week when referred to who is the orange turd. Didn't really want to envision either mental image. Getting back to football, I think if you look at this season alone, I think Chicago is playing a bit better than the Jets are. But I think the difference here, and the Jets are the home team, but I think the difference here is that when Thomas plays Justin, Thomas just raises his play to another whole level. His game planning process or whatever he does, he just raises it to the max. And I think if you look at the series between these two teams, the Jets win more often than Chicago does. So I'm picking the Jets to win this game at home. It might be close, it might be tough. I don't know if that spread will be covered. I'm not worried about that, but I think the Jets are going to win this game at home.
All right. I'm going to keep it simple. I think it'll be a good matchup here, but I think the Jets are going to take this one. I think the spread's right on, but I'm going to give this victory to the Jets. Final 2 games we have Atlanta going against San Francisco. That's our final pick'em for the week. And we're going to start this one off with Mitch.
I'm going Atlanta. I was impressed by Atlanta's game against Washington last week. They've gotten themselves back into the playoff hunt, winning 3 in a row. And I don't really see why that has to stop this week. So I'm going with Atlanta.
All right. Coach. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the stadium is going to be rocking this week, and I think my team is going to play pretty solid on both sides of the ball. So I'm picking the home team to come out with a win in this one.
All right, I'll keep it simple. We're all in agreement on this one. I'm going with Atlanta for the victory over Charlie this week. Final game of week number 10. This one has our largest spread out of all the games this week with 9.5, as we have Minnesota hosting Green Bay. We are going to start this one off with Dean.
Yeah, I think I can't confirm or deny the rumor that Shogi has sent Barney a gift certificate to order some My Pillows, but I think that may have happened. And I'm calling for the upset here. I think Green Bay is going to shock people, and Minnesota is the real deal. I'm not downplaying that at all, but I think the Packers are going to pull off another shocker this week and get the upset.
All right, Mitch.
It's Minnesota. You know where I'm going with this, and I have not had my lead pipe locked yet. So everybody get your hands up in the air. Start clapping. Skull. Goal. It's going to be Minnesota. It's going to take out Green Bay, and I think they're going to make it in impressive fashion. I'll take Minnesota.
All right. Dean, I already knew who he's going to pick. I saw him putting on the skirt and getting his pom-poms together and putting the little bow in it, putting the bow in his hair and everything.
I got the little helmet with the horns in it with the ponytails hanging on the side.
I already knew.
Number 3, so predictable.
Oh, yeah, so predictable on that one. So, but I will, and actually I will go ahead
you're
and...
soon to be NFC Western Division leader right here in Minnesota.
I'm also going to roll with him on this one. I'm going to take Minnesota this week as well. So, all right, guys. So we got the crew back in here again. We did run a little bit long, but that's all good. We're glad to have Mitch back onto the show. And again, thank all the coaches that's been on the show. Got the whole crew through. And we're probably going to rinse and repeat and run through it all again in the coming week. So as we come to wrap this show up, we're going to hit the table one last time, starting off with Dean.
Yeah, I think as usual we'll have some very good games this weekend. And what did you say? There were 3 pick'ems, and but they're all going to be interesting games. I mean, how can you not say it's an interesting week of games when the Cardinals and Jets are playing? That's generally the toughest matchup we usually see. So I think we're going to have some good games to watch Friday night on Discord.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words, Mitch, for you take us home?
No, I'll just say what Dean was saying there. Everyone who can, come join us and watch some games with us on Friday night. If you can't come and attend and hang out with us the whole time, just come and join us later on. I mean, we're usually running about close to 4 hours on Friday night. So depending on what the time zone you're in or what you might have going on Friday nights, come hang out with us. We usually have a pretty good group of about 7 or 8 regulars, it seems like, that pop in and out during the night. We have a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. So we should have some good games to watch and poke fun at each other about. So come and join us. And until then, let's get it.